Welcome back to the Grad-Centered Podcast for episode 14. Today we're going to talk about a question that's a simple question, but it has a rather complex answer. And I want to give you my 2 cents on this topic. That question is, why is college so expensive? Well, I can tell you part of the reason why it's so expensive is because college cost inflates at about double the rate of the economy in general, which means that those college costs come on quick, they compound frequently, and they get out of hand really quick. And you'll hear this as you talk with families, or at least I hear this when I talk with families when it comes to college planning, is they just don't have a realistic understanding of what college costs today. It's not their fault. That cost is ballooned so quickly that individuals don't even know where it might be now because there's no reference point in the economy. It's not like it's gone at the same clip as bread in terms of what we have to pay for it now versus what we had to pay in 1950. And you'll hear many of the previous generation or the generation before talking about how they went to college and they just paid for it all with a summer job. Those days are over. So why is that the case? Why is college so expensive? The first thing that I would say, and these are my opinions and my 2 cents on this topic, feel free to comment or email me your comments because I want to know what you think as well. But these are a few things that I've identified that may point to why college inflates at such a rapid clip. The first is because I think college cost is a bubble. Why do I think that? Because there's a lot of money that goes into the higher education system in terms of federal dollars. So we've talked about federal financial aid. There's also private student loans out there. And this money that goes into the system inflates the price of the asset of a college degree. And so I think because there's so much money flowing in, then costs can increase because there's money enough that folks can borrow and pay it. Even though sometimes, like in today's age, you might be paying over $100,000 for that degree. So it seems like a lot of money, and it is. The second is the increasing cost of what I call luxury accommodations. So I used to work in university housing, and if you look around at some university housing complexes and some of the amenities that are found on campus, they tend to be pretty luxury, things that the normal average American would not be living in similar accommodations outside of a college campus. And these buildings, this expansion that's happened over the last couple decades to accommodate growing enrollment numbers, although that's about ready to stop, at least in terms of demographics in many parts of the United States. But those growing enrollments and giving those increasingly luxurious accommodations to students, there's a cost attached to that, and a cost for taxpayers as well, but for private schools. But essentially, there's some cost that's attached to that piece. The next one that I would say is just the shrinking federal and state support. So when we talk about state schools, like here in Kansas, K-State, Fort Hays State, what have you, those institutions used to be state sponsored, and now they're state supported, maybe, and that percentage has gone down over time. So that percentage of the state putting money towards those state institutions, that sliver of the budget is shrinking and has shrunk quite a bit over the last couple decades, and really even in the last decade in particular. The next reason I think college cost is so expensive, administrative bloat. So it used to be, way back in the day of colleges, that faculty would teach, but maybe they also lived in the residence hall and they looked after students. And so there were many hats that were worn by a small amount of people. Well, over time, with regulation and fundraising and administrative roles and student success and enrollment management, all these different things, we now have staff that are in those positions, and there's cost attached to those staff members. And so administrative bloat and the increasing salaries and the increasing number of administrators on campus, a lot of people would point to that. Not necessarily my opinion. I haven't gone through a lot of data on that, but that's one of the things people point to. And the final one is just, let me think of how I want to term this. So colleges have to grow, expand, and offer programs that make sense to the public. And over time, what those degrees are and what those programs are has changed. We no longer have programs in wagon wheel making because we don't make many wagon wheels anymore, I guess, unless you're making one for a museum. And so things change over time. Well, higher education doesn't tend to change as quickly as maybe the dynamics and the economy is changing outside of the ivory tower. So another element of cost here is maybe low enrolled programs or a lack of innovation or a lack of mirroring what society needs. There's certainly a cost attached to that as well. So that's the final thing I would put out here. Again, if you have other comments on this or you have other ideas, would love to hear those. But these are some things that I've identified over the years of reading articles and even working in higher education that I think are some good reasons as to why the cost of college has increased over time. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much.